The alien courtroom was suffocating, its walls adorned with jagged glowing symbols that pulsed with a sickly green light. The air hummed with tension as Dr. Eleanor Voss stood at the center of the chamber, bound by energy restraints. Her figure, slight but dignified, was dwarfed by the towering Xelkor judges seated on elevated thrones. Their translucent skin shimmered under the artificial light, revealing the network of veins that pulsed with their lifeblood, cold, calculating, and devoid of empathy. The lead judge's voice echoed, amplified by alien technology. "Eleanor Voss, you stand accused of treason against the Xelkor Dominion. Your alleged crime, colluding with insurgents to undermine the rightful order." Eleanor raised her chin, her voice steady despite the odds. "I am innocent. My work was humanitarian, meant to save lives, not destroy them. The evidence against me is fabricated, and you know it." Her words were met with silence, save for the soft murmur of the Xelkor observers who filled the gallery. Among them were a few human diplomats, their faces pale and drawn, powerless in this arena. The Dominion's iron grip extended to every aspect of life for those under their rule, and no plea from humanity had ever swayed their cold logic. A projection appeared above the courtroom, displaying falsified footage of Eleanor handing over data to an insurgent group. The images were grainy but damning, designed to leave no room for doubt. She watched, her jaw tightening as the crowd murmured in approval. She had been framed, and the truth meant nothing here. The verdict came swiftly. "Guilty," the judge declared, his voice devoid of emotion. Sentence: execution by public hanging. Effective immediately. A gasp rippled through the human contingent. Eleanor closed her eyes for a brief moment, her mind racing, not with fear, but with thoughts of her son. She had always known this could happen. The Xelkor feared humanity's potential, and eliminating its brightest minds was their strategy to suppress rebellion. In the courtyard of the Xelkor capital, a vast crowd gathered beneath the towering execution platform. The sky was an eerie shade of violet, streaked with tendrils of lightning that danced across the horizon. Eleanor was led to the gallows, her steps steady despite the weight of her restraints. From the shadows, hidden cameras recorded the event. This was not just an execution, it was a message, a reminder of the Dominion's power. The Xelkor announcer's voice boomed, recounting her alleged crimes. As the noose tightened around her neck, Eleanor's gaze swept over the crowd, lingering on the few humans scattered among the sea of alien faces. Her final words were calm, resolute. "Humanity will rise, and justice will prevail." The platform dropped. Silence followed. On Earth, the footage reached Captain Aiden Voss, her only son. He watched without a word, his expression unreadable. But as the screen went dark, he stood, his fists clenched at his sides. The grief in his eyes hardened into something else entirely: determination. The Xelkor had made a fatal mistake. Aiden sat alone in the dimly lit room, the silence oppressive. The video of his mother's execution had ended, but the image of her final moments burned into his mind. He placed his hands on the table, fingers trembling as they traced the edge of an old photograph, a memory of better times. In it, Eleanor smiled warmly, her hand resting on his shoulder, the kind of smile that made everything seem possible. He inhaled sharply, pushing the memory aside. Grief threatened to consume him, but he refused to let it. His mother's death was not a random act, it was a calculated move by the Xelkor to send a message. They had underestimated him, underestimated humanity. That was their first mistake. The message from the United Human Federation arrived shortly after. It was brief but resolute. "We've seen the footage. The Xelkor must pay. We need you to lead us." Aiden read the words again, then deleted the transmission. He didn't need convincing. The fire in his chest was already burning. In the following hours, he immersed himself in preparation. Reports from human outposts across the galaxy detailed years of oppression, families torn apart, resources stolen, colonies left to wither under alien rule. Yet buried within the despair were stories of resistance, a sabotaged supply line, an alien commander assassinated, whispers of rebellion spreading like wildfire. Humanity had never stopped fighting, even in the shadows. Aiden called a meeting with the Federation's highest-ranking officials. They were weary but determined, their faces etched with the weight of survival. He spoke with precision and purpose, his voice cutting through the haze of defeat. "This isn't just about my mother. This is about all of us. The Xelkor think we're weak, divided. We'll show them what it means to underestimate humanity. The plan he proposed was ambitious, almost reckless. Aiden had identified a vulnerability in the Xelkor's centralized control system, a hub located deep within their capital city. Disabling it would cripple their ability to coordinate, throwing their empire into chaos. The officials listened intently, their doubts slowly replaced by hope. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Engineers worked tirelessly to design weapons capable of piercing Xelkor defenses, salvaging materials from scavenged alien tech. Scientists developed countermeasures against the Dominion's energy fields, while soldiers trained with unrelenting focus, their resolve hardened by years of subjugation. Aiden moved among them, offering guidance, sparring with recruits, and studying the Dominion's tactics. Despite his grief, he remained composed, his determination contagious. When morale wavered, he reminded them of Eleanor's sacrifice, her belief in humanity's potential. "She didn't die so we could falter," he said. "She believed in us. It's time we believe in ourselves." As the day of the mission approached, Aiden stood before his team, a group of hand-picked operatives who had volunteered for what many considered a suicide mission. He looked each of them in the eye, seeing the same fire that burned within him. "We've waited long enough. The Xelkor think they've won. Let's prove them wrong." With that, humanity's fight for justice began. The infiltration began under the cover of artificial darkness, the Xelkor capital shrouded in its perpetual twilight. Aiden and his team moved like shadows, their footsteps silent, their breaths measured. The alien city was an intimidating labyrinth of towering spires and glowing pathways, each turn patrolled by sentinels with cold, unblinking eyes. The team's equipment, designed to mask their presence, hummed faintly, a reminder of how much rested on their stealth. Aiden led the way, his focus unwavering. Every move was deliberate, every step calculated. The mission required precision. The control hub, buried deep within the heart of the city, was protected by layers of security. They would need to breach multiple barriers, both physical and digital, to reach their target. Failure was not an option. The first obstacle appeared, a patrol of Xelkor guards. Their movements were mechanical, their towering forms casting long, menacing shadows. Aiden signaled to his team, and they split into positions. The air grew tense as they waited for the perfect moment. In synchronized silence, the humans struck. The guards fell swiftly, their bodies crumpling to the ground without a sound. As they advanced, the team encountered a series of checkpoints, each one more heavily fortified than the last. Holographic barriers shimmered ominously, and automated turrets tracked even the faintest movement. Aiden's second-in-command, a tech specialist named Sarah, worked furiously to disable the systems. Sparks flew as she bypassed alien circuits, her fingers moving with practiced ease. "Clear," she whispered, and they moved forward, time pressing against them like a weight. The control hub came into view, an enormous structure pulsing with energy. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that glowed with a faint, otherworldly light, radiating the power that controlled the Dominion's vast network. Aiden's jaw tightened. This was the heart of their oppressor's power, and it would take everything they had to bring it down. They breached the outer defenses with explosives, the muted thud of the blast swallowed by the city's ambient noise. The team poured inside, their movements swift and methodical. The interior was a maze of alien technology, the walls alive with streams of data. Xelkor soldiers swarmed to intercept them, and the silence was shattered by the sharp crack of gunfire and the hum of energy weapons. Aiden fought with unmatched precision, his every move a blur of efficiency. He was a force of nature, his strikes calculated and devastating. Around him, his team held their ground, their determination fueled by years of suffering and the promise of freedom. For every Xelkor that fell, humanity's resolve grew stronger. Amid the chaos, Aiden spotted their target, the central core, a towering structure that pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm. He pushed forward, cutting through waves of resistance, until he stood before it. His team covered him as he set the charges, their voices sharp over the comms as they called out enemy positions. The Xelkor High Commander appeared, flanked by elite guards. Aiden faced him, their gazes locking. The commander's voice was a low, guttural growl, filled with contempt. "You cannot win. Humanity is insignificant." Aiden's response was cold, his voice steady. "You underestimated us. That was your last mistake. The charges detonated, the core collapsing in a blinding cascade of energy. The shockwave rippled through the city, leaving destruction in its wake. As alarms blared and the Xelkor forces scrambled in disarray, Aiden and his team vanished into the chaos, their mission complete. Humanity had struck a blow that the Dominion would never forget. The aftermath of the explosion rippled far beyond the Xelkor capital. The once imposing Dominion found itself paralyzed. Their centralized control hub, the lifeblood of their military coordination, was gone. Communications fractured, supply lines failed, and their forces descended into chaos. What had been an empire of unyielding order now teetered on the brink of collapse. News of the attack spread quickly. Across the galaxy, oppressed colonies erupted in rebellion. Species long subdued by the Dominion took up arms, emboldened by humanity's defiance. Small victories multiplied, and the Xelkor's iron grip loosened as one planet after another slipped from their control. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy tasted hope. On Earth, Aiden returned to a hero's welcome. Crowds filled the streets, their cheers echoing through the city. The faces of the people were alight with something unfamiliar: pride. Humanity, once seen as fragile and subjugated, had proven its strength. Aiden stood at the forefront of the celebration, his presence commanding, yet his expression was somber. Victory was not without its cost. He addressed the crowd with measured words. This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice. We've shown the Xelkor, and the galaxy, that we will not be broken. But this fight isn't over. The Dominion will fall completely, and when it does, we'll build a future where no one lives under oppression again. His speech resonated far and wide. Humanity's allies, inspired by their success, pledged their support. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to reverse engineer Xelkor technology, transforming it into tools for defense and progress. Soldiers trained harder, not for conquest, but to protect what had been won. Humanity was no longer merely surviving, it was thriving. Despite the victory, Aiden found little solace. He spent long hours reviewing intelligence, ensuring the Xelkor couldn't regroup. In the quiet moments, his thoughts returned to his mother. Eleanor's sacrifice had been the catalyst for this rebellion, but the cost weighed heavily on him. She had believed in humanity's potential, and now it was up to him to ensure her vision became reality. A month after the mission, a monument was unveiled in the heart of Earth's capital. It was a towering statue of Eleanor Voss, her figure captured mid-stride as if leading humanity forward. Beneath it, an inscription read, "In memory of those who gave everything for freedom. Their legacy lives on in us." Aiden stood before the statue, the crowd behind him silent. He placed a small medallion at its base, his mother's symbol of peace, and whispered, "I did this for you. For all of us." The galaxy continued to shift. The Xelkor Dominion crumbled under the weight of rebellion, their former slaves rising to claim their independence. Humanity, once seen as the weakest of species, became a symbol of resistance and unity. They didn't seek domination, they sought justice. As Aiden looked toward the stars that night, he saw a future his mother had dreamed of, a galaxy no longer ruled by fear, but by hope and determination. It was only the beginning, but for the first time, humanity was ready to lead.